Um, Usually when you're setting up a sound system, you're stuck with this really frustrating binary choice. You either get high fidelity sound, which inevitably means big ugly boxes taking up floor space, or you prioritize design and end up with invisible speakers that sound like they're underwater.
Yeah, physics really hates hidden speakers. It's just the reality of moving air.
Right. But today we're looking at a piece of hardware that claims to cheat that rule. We've got the technical data and specs here from HDTV Supply on the Kramer YARDEN IH-1 hidden in-wall speaker. And our mission for this deep dive is to see how this device actually tries to solve that conflict between interior design aesthetics and good audio performance.
It is a really bold attempt to resolve that conflict, too. I mean, the goal here is understanding how you pull decent audio reinforcement out of something that is literally designed to disappear behind a layer of drywall and paint.
Okay, so let's unpack the engineering first. The spec sheet calls this an infinite baffle design. Now, we know that usually implies a massive speaker enclosure, but this thing is tiny. So what is actually going on here?
It's a great question. Well, in a traditional sealed speaker, the box is there to manage the air pressure. Specifically, it basically stops the sound wave coming from the back of the driver from wrapping around and canceling out the waves coming from the front.
Right, phase cancellation.
Exactly. That's phase cancellation 101.
Because without the box, you get zero bass and the super thin sound since the waves just kill each other.
Right. So with the Yarden IH-1, the infinite baffle simply means it uses the wall cavity itself. The space between your studs becomes that enclosure. The wall is the box. This allows the driver to function without needing a dedicated, bulky cabinet attached to its back.
But here's where I get a little skeptical. To hide in a wall, the driver has to be completely flat. And we know that flat drivers typically have terrible excursion issues. They just cannot push air like a traditional cone can.
And that is the primary engineering hurdle they had to clear. Kramer uses a polypropylene flat membrane instead of a cone so it can sit completely flush. But to get that flat membrane to move with enough authority to generate 83 decibels of sensitivity, they had to massively over-engineer the motor structure.
Yeah, I saw that in the specs. It's a double magnet neodymium motor with a 2-inch voice coil. That seems like a ridiculous amount of horsepower for a driver this size.
It has to be. Neodymium is incredibly efficient relative to its weight. They need that extreme magnetic strength to drive that flat piston hard enough to literally overcome the mass of the wall covering you are about to paint over it.
Okay, let's talk about the results. Does hiding the speaker ruin the sound? Because I'm looking at the frequency response here, and it's 120 hertz to 20 kilohertz.
I had a feeling you'd zero in on that number.
Well, yeah, 120 hertz is a pretty high floor. That is cutting off the bottom end of a male vocal, let alone a bass guitar or a kick drum.
Yep.
If you install this in a living room, you aren't getting a full theater experience, are you?
Not on its own, no. If you run this without support, it's going to sound very bright, potentially even thin. It is effectively a satellite speaker. For a true high-fidelity application, you absolutely must pair this with a subwoofer to handle everything below 120 hertz.
So it's not magic, it's just physics. You sacrifice the low end to get the invisibility.
Precisely. But within that 120 hertz to 20 kilohertz range, the performance is robust. It handles 40 watts RMS and 90 watts continuous program.
Okay.
That means for vocals, dialogue, and general instrumentation, it's clear and it's loud. It's a legitimate audio solution, not just a novelty, provided you understand those limitations with the bass response.
Let's shift over to the installation side of things. The physical footprint here. The mounting depth is only 5.7 centimeters, or about 2.2 inches. That fits easily into standard wall studs.
It does, yes.
And it has these insert and drop brackets.
Yeah, those are designed for intuitive, really quick setup. You just slot it in.
But I noticed something else in the specs that points to who this is really built for. The transformer taps.
Right. The 7-volt and 100-volt options.
To me, that completely screams commercial install. You just aren't using 70-volt lines in a standard bedroom setup.
You're right. That high-voltage compatibility allows you to daisy-chain 20 of these down a long hotel hallway or throughout a massive open-concept restaurant without losing signal.
But it does also have the 8-ohm bypass, right?
It does. It's a bit of a chameleon in that way. You can flip the switch for 8-ohm and hook it up to your home receiver, or tap it for 100 volts and use it in a corporate lobby. It bridges the gap between residential luxury and commercial utility.
It really feels like we're moving toward a world where the architecture is the technology. You don't see the gear anymore, you just experience the result. It's perfect for listeners who want that smart home experience without the visual clutter of hardware.
That is exactly the trend. We used to display our speakers like furniture. Now, the ultimate luxury is seamless integration, where the technology is subservient to the design.
Which brings up a slightly terrifying thought for you to ponder as we wrap up. If high-fidelity sound can now be completely invisible, what other dominant pieces of technology in our homes like screens or lighting might be the next to disappear into the walls?
And what happens when that tech inevitably moves on?
Exactly. Are we building homes where the architecture essentially becomes obsolete hardware? What happens in 5 years when you need to upgrade the firmware in your living room wall? Just something to chew on before you start cutting holes in your drywall. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.